that is when it comes down to vocals, we could do that. And then another thing to make the vocals really shine is we're going to work with a compressor. In fact, I'm going to move this down right here a little bit, as you can see on the mixer, because I want the vocals to be compressed before the reverb hits the track. What that means is that if I put the reverb up here and then the compressor down here, what would happen is that the compressor would compress the reverb as well. But I don't want that. I want the opposite to happen. I want the reverb to wet the track that it's already being compressed. So let's go with a compressor. And Steinberg has a really, really cool compressor, which is this one, this guy right here. And with this compressor, we're going to do a couple of different things. Now, granted, understanding how compressor works, it's a lengthy process. Compressors are very, they're not the easiest thing to understand, but once you understand the basics of what you're doing, then you sort of like build your knowledge from there. Let's see what we can get ourselves into.
I went to the grocery store. I bought some bread.
So as you can hear, I lowered down the threshold right here. So now the audio is being squashed a little bit down there.
Some eggs and some frozen pizza, yeah.
What I'm gonna do now is actually squash it even further. I bring up my ratio knob, and you can see what it's doing to the level. It's actually curbing it even more. I'm gonna up the attack, and what that means is that I'm gonna make the attack longer, which also means that when the audio enters the path, that decides the milliseconds, the 27 milliseconds, decide how long that does it take for the compressor to actually kick in full blast. And that is basically also another way you can make the compressor sound interesting. It's by delaying that attack.
I went to the grocery store.
Now that my vocals are being squashed a little bit, which means that the softer things that I sung are going to be brought up, and the louder things that I sung are going to be squashed down. That's basically what a compressor... Imagine the compressor to do this work on your track. Like, it sort of like squashes it together so it sounds more uniform and sounds more organic. However, too much of it will sound artificial and it will sound really, really bad. So you've got to find that nice sweet spot for the vocal that you're working with.
I went to the grocery store.
But as you can notice, it did make my vocals quieter. So what you're going to do, your first temptation would be to go back to your levels and push up that vocals, right? Wrong. You should never do that. What you do is you work on your makeup gain up down here.
I went to the grocery store. I bought some bread, some eggs, and some frozen pizza, yeah.
And of course, guys, every rules that I'm giving here can be broken. These are not set in stone by any means, and these are not even like what most mixer do, but this allows you to sort of start thinking about playing and messing around with these knobs and levels to learn by yourself what these things do. There's also plenty of amazing mixing tutorials out there that will allow you to really, really learn what a compressor does on a technical level, and I'm not going to do that because I'm not an expert by any means. But anyway, this is what I got so far.
I went to the grocery store. I bought some bread, some eggs.
I'm turning down the release knob, and the release knob is basically how fast the compressor stops working after the transient has faded out below the threshold level. So whenever the track goes below 40, in this moment is below 36 dB, then how fast does that compressor stops working after the 36 dB has gone down?
I went to the grocery store. I bought some bread.
Okay, now that's nice and tamed, and that's basically the basics of how you treat a little vocals. The next thing I'm going to show you is something that if you have Cubase Elements, you might not have this. I'm not actually sure. But what we're going to do here is we're going to pitch correct my voice. Yes, indeed. We're going to use an auto-tune on this track, and that is through Very Audio right here. We're going to activate Very Audio, and we're going to see my notes. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to do a very basic auto-tune on my vocals, and that's going to be from the quantize. I'm going to quantize my pitch, which is going to sort of bring it back into the actual pitch that it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to straighten up the curve a little bit to make my voice less bouncy. All right, so let's see how that came out.
I went to the grocery store.
Okay.
I bought some bread, some eggs, and some frozen pizza, yeah.
Okay, I can already see that there are some notes that the algorithm didn't quite fix, which are specifically...
I went to...
Okay, so this is fine.
To the grocery store.
Okay, that's fine. Right here.
I bought some bread, some eggs, and some frozen pizza.
Pizza. Let's see.
Frozen pizza.
There it is. So that's the note right there.
Frozen pizza, yeah.
Okay, now this is basically sort of pitch corrected there. And that's basically what I will do to the vocals right now. The last thing I'm going to cover is the doubling of the vocals. So we're going to take this track. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate tracks. Now, if we do that, it's going to duplicate the exact same copy of your track. If for some reason that doesn't happen and you find yourself like this, press Alt on your keyboard and drag down, and you have an exact copy of a track. Now, what we're going to do here, it's a little bit of a surgical operation. We're going to hard pan this vocal right here, which we're going to rename L for left and right for an R for right there. And we're going to take this track, we're going to go to the inspector, and we're going to hard pan it left. And then this one, we're going to hard pan it right, which doubles the track.
I went to the grocery store.
Now, this is not going to do anything. It sounds exactly like it used to sound before. However, a trick that I learned for these kinds of genres of music is to zoom in quite a bit and select the right track or the left track, it doesn't matter. Press J on your keyboard, which deactivates the snap on the grid, and you move this, you offset that slightly. Now, look at this.
I went to the grocery store.
Now, all of a sudden, the vocal sort of comes to life a little bit. You have a much greater stereo field in your ears when you listen to this, and the effects is nicer. So I would actually push it a little more, give that delay a little more presence.
I went to the grocery store.
And now the vocal is more present.
I bought some bread, some eggs, and some frozen pizza, yeah.
Okay, of course, there are still some notes that are like not quite on point. This one specifically. There you go. Now I actually sound like I can sing, but of course this is a lie.
I went to the grocery store.
So the first thing I want.
I went to the grocery store.
All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select these two tracks. Then we're going to go to Edit, and we're going to go to Render in Place. And we're going to do render settings first because we need to set up a few things. So, okay, once we press the render with settings, we are greeted with these window render selection right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select as one event because we want this two tracks to be rendered down to one single track. We're going to click to channel settings, and I have it set up to the tail, the end of the track to seconds. You can select how many seconds you would like that tail to be. I'm going to render it down to 32 bits actually, which not the float one, but the actual 32 bits because it is higher quality that way. And then you select the file path where this rendering it's going to go to. So I am going to go to my project, video test project, and I'm going to create another folder called rendering. So this is just to be very organized. So I know that in this folder, all the things I render down to audio from MIDI or other audio files are going to be stored in that folder. So I'm going to select the folder. I then am going to say mix down to one audio file. So these two tracks are going to be all merged into one audio file. And then you get to select what happens to the source events. In this case, I'm going to mute source events. And I click render. That is going to do its thing. These two tracks, I can either get rid of them or I can keep them. I usually keep them just in case you need the originals for whatever reason. I'm just going to shrink them down like that so they don't bother me visually. And I'm going to select a caller for this track. And I'm going to call this track vocals main in this case. Now, as you can see, the audio tracks work a little different. The audio tracks are not named the same thing as virtual tracks. The virtual instrument tracks have one name paragraph, but the audio tracks have two. The audio tracks have a file name and then a description. And this is going to change the description. What you want is to go up there and change the actual file name, which is the name that you have your file in your folder named after. So basically that's it. In the process, I'm going to press Control S, which is going to save my project. In this case, I didn't save it before. And so I'm going to do it right now. The folder is the correct one. I'm going to name this song video test project because my trip to the grocery is just that.
I went to the grocery store.
And as you can see now, my track is merged down into that. I'm going to reactivate my snap to grid to clean that track up a little bit. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to clean the track of all the silence moments. So right here, there is a silent moment. So I'm going to press 3 on my keyboard, number 3, and I'm going to activate the snipping tool or the scissor, and I'm going to cut the silence out. And then, very important, I'm going to put some fades like that to make the track sort of start and end very smoothly.
I went to the grocery store. I bought some bread, some eggs, and some frozen pizza.
And there you have it. You have a functional vocal track on top of some virtual instruments. And these sort of techniques are very usable for a variety of scenarios. Now, well, that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys liked the video, press like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you to the next one.